Dude, what if Steve died? Because like I haven't heard from him since like last week. So like I just do we all
I
pass
hope
the class?
everything not that bad.
I know, but like
I haven't
if he
received any
does,
grades either.
really?
Yeah, have you guys gotten any of your assignments graded?
No.
Oh yeah, I don't
I
know.
saw a thing on Reddit one time where it was like if you're in a university class and like your professor or like one of your classmates dies, everybody just automatically gets an A plus. Because could you imagine being like in law school and then
Oh my
you don't
God.
know crap, but you somebody died, so you didn't have to take the class, and then now you're a lawyer. Oh, hey, would you look at that?
Now I
Yeah,
grade for everyone. Sorry, Jaylene.
right. I know. Dang it! How dare he? How dare he not be dead?
I tried my best.
I was like, well, if he died, does that mean that we all just get an A? Like we just passed the class and then you showed up? Like that's so rude of you.
I know, I'm pretty selfish. I wonder what would happen. I bet they'd make you finish the class with somebody else. You'd be all
No, no, no.
traumatized and sad and stuff, and they'd be like, anyway.
It's kind of like the jokes about how like if you die, and your job uses a Ouija board to be like, hey, so did you like get a replacement or like
Oh my God. That's really funny. That's a really funny idea. You're like, oh my God.
rest
I
in peace, my butt?
feel like Australia probably has a law protecting at least against that. You know, they passed that law where you can't call after work, like your bosses can't call you after work to harass you. We need to have one like you can't call after you're dead.
I'd be such a mean poltergeist if anybody ever tried me.
Right. Oh my God. It'd be fun. Have you seen the movie Talk to Me?
No.
It's creepy. It's kind of that idea. It's like, yeah. Ooh. It's fun though if
Oh,
you
is that no, that's tarot. The one that I'm thinking of is tarot, where they like all the tarot cards come to life and are like super scary and stuff. I want to see that one actually.
you Talk to Me is creepy. It's good. It's like there's this hand, this disembodied hand statue, and if you hold it and you say talk to me, you basically a ghost appears in front of you, like a dead person, and I don't want to ruin it. I'll let you if you see it, tell me. I'd love to hear
Wow,
what
I
you think.
hate that. I
Yeah,
don't
I
like that.
somebody who was already kind of grew up believing in spiritual stuff. I was like, I would never do that. I'm an atheist.
Yeah.
I would not do that. I would be like, oh,
It'd been my luck I'd get like Satan himself, like in the flesh. Not even
right.
like an ancestor or anything. It's just him in general.
Well, hello, nice to meet you. I've been waiting for this chance. I gotta go get ready. But hey, everybody.
How's everybody's weekend? Oh, Okay, Professor K is here.
How was everybody's weekend?
I mean, mine's been good. I moved to Kent on Sunday, so I've been just like vigorously trying to pack up my house, and then on Sunday I got to drive all the way over to there from Spokane, and I'm leaving my husband behind for the first month until because we couldn't get out of the apartment until December, so he's getting our money's worth, I guess. But
Hmm. Hey, do you have some anxiety about that?
like bad. Like it's not even it's so weird because I know it's what's supposed to happen because I'm just being pushed in that direction. Everything's working out, but I'm like terrified, and that's how I know it's like, meant to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Professor. Um, hi.
Wow.
Are you feeling better?
I am, yeah. Yeah, I am. Oh, it's 6:05. I can turn this off and we can start. Yeah. Hey,
Um,
everybody. I can get you guys up on what's going on with me. Sorry about last week, everybody. I am feeling a lot better. Not 100% better, but a lot better. I had an upper endoscopy yesterday where they put a scope down my throat and they found out that I have an infection in my stomach. So that's disgusting, but at least it's not. I was thinking it was ulcers, is what they were assuming, which kind of made sense with like both parents dying this year and stuff like that. But instead, it's some type of an infection. We're figuring out what. So I'm doing much better. It really all kind of boiled down to the food I'm eating. So now I basically eat toast and applesauce, and I'm bored to death of it, but we're getting me better. And as long as I just stick mostly to that, I'm fine. But yeah, I'll keep you guys up on what's going on with that. But I'm very happy to be feeling better. The way it was like I'd wake up feeling pretty great, and then right around lunchtime I would eat something, always something that I thought was fine, and then about 20 minutes after that I would spend the rest of the day feeling nauseous until the time I would go to bed that night, like horribly nauseous with a lot of pain right here. So I'm glad to find out what it was and to now know at least something to do. But crazy that it's an infection. I just don't know what on earth how I got one, but we'll find out what it is and how I got it and all that. But yahoo! Thank you guys for performing. I haven't seen any of your speeches yet, but I will. Thank you for dealing with having a totally strange, random stranger show up and moderate your speeches. Hopefully that went okay. I know Namida. I don't know if you guys know her or not. How many of you knew Namida before you had her? That's hopefully helpful. She has a manner to herself that is not the same as the culture that I like to cultivate in this class, but she teaches this class on her own also. So she's not terrible at it or anything. She just isn't the same style as me. And so I got really anxious when I knew she was going to be there for your guys' first stories. Like, oh no. But she was super excited to be here for you guys for your stories.
Be sure that we have all, I don't know about all, me for sure, a lot of anxious.
Yeah.
Another one third. So.
Well, I'm glad you guys performed. I haven't, like I said, I haven't watched him yet. I'll be grading you guys very leniently for everybody who performed last week. So as far as grades go, don't worry about that. Really, this class isn't, the grades aren't what I'm really focused on anyway. I'm really focused on trying to get you guys the experience and the skills so that to be better at this public speaking, because there's so many times where public speaking comes up in life, either professionally or just in just regular life. It's a really good skill to have, and I really want you guys to all feel confident in it. So hopefully that was good for you guys. The next step for that is to do your reflections on it. You have your videos for that. Wait, you guys have your videos for that? Did you have your videos for that? Oh, I'm seeing no's. Okay. I need to probably give you those videos for that. And I'm only just came back to work. Haha. So don't worry about your reflections for that just yet. I'll get you the videos and then we'll do those a bit slower. I'll do
So
that
those
tomorrow.
of us that already wrote our reflections, because I was gonna wait until, but like I said, I thought you died, so I was like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna get those. But
Right, right.
so those of us that already did them, can we like edit them when we get our actual videos?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And that's the way you should do it. Yeah. So, because I want you to watch yourself. Part of watching yourself will feed into what the work you're doing this week too, because you're this week, for those of you who've already started working on some of your stuff, you're gonna be looking at like, dealing with voice confrontation, which is when you watch your videos in this class of yourself perform, voice confrontation is a real thing. That's the feeling of hating hearing yourself recorded. So it's a pretty common experience for a lot of people. When they hear themselves recorded, it doesn't sound the same as when you talk. That's a normal human experience, because when you hear yourself talk, your ears are inside your head and you hear a much deeper, much more resonant version of your voice than what the rest of us hear. And so you kind of hear a much more kick-ass version of your voice than the version that the whole world hears. And so when you hear it recorded, as you will when you have to watch yourself recorded, there's a moment for a lot of people where there's this kind of like, ugh, I hate this. And I really want, this sounds cruel, but I want that for you. Not because I want you to experience hating sounding your voice, but because I want you to slowly realize that your voice doesn't sound bad, that your voice actually sounds great. It has sounded great your whole life. It's just not the same voice that you think you have. My voice to me sounds a lot like when I have a cold, my voice in my head sounds similar to what it sounds like out loud to like when I have a cold. And I'm like, it's crazy to me. But when I hear it recorded, I sound to me like a small boy. I don't sound like an adult man at all. I sound like, really? That's my voice? You might have the same experience for you, whatever you are. So I want you guys to all, the point is, I want you to all watch the video of yourself performing for several reasons, not just for reflecting on your performance. And also not just to pick apart your performance. Part of your reflection is to say what you did well. And if you have a hard time picking out what you did well, then that's important for you to notice, right? If you're the type of person who can rattle off all the things you did wrong in your performance, but have a hard time picking out the one thing you did right, that's an important thing for you to notice about yourself. This is all metacognition. That's the title of all of this. This is thinking about your thinking. And this is where the real growth happens. So please do watch your video. I'll get that all done tomorrow. I think I'll remember to do this. I mean, it's really the only thing I have to do besides catching up on grading, which will be really easy at this point, because most of that will just be like, you get all the points. It's the feedback that I need to make sure I give you guys. All right. So, but thanks to see you guys. So let's get you guys talking to each other. So everybody got your dice roller. At least most of you got your dice roller. Hopefully you got that thing ready to go. So let's start with today's warm up, which is no. Trying to get up on screen. So today's warm-up is another impromptu storytelling one. So we're going to call back to storytelling like we've done. You guys didn't get to do it last week. Well, you did do it, but you didn't get to do impromptu storytelling. So this one is Aesop's Fables storytelling. So if you know a fable that answers one of these, what question you roll, feel free to tell that fable, but feel free to make up your own too. So here they are. They are going to be tell your team the story of. So you're going to roll their dice, see which one you get. If you hate it, you can always re-roll. But I want everybody to at least go once, but keep going until I pull you guys back. Maybe you get to go twice. First one is how elephants got their trunks. Second one is why blackbirds are black. Third one is why dogs chase cats. Fourth one is how giraffes got so tall. Fifth one is why the sky is blue. And the sixth is what happened to unicorns. All right. So let's go ahead and put that in the chat right now before I put you into Teams. And I want you guys, like I said, everybody to at least go once. So aim for going twice, because that way, depending on how long groups will each go, if your group goes fast, everybody will probably go twice, but I want everybody at least go once. Make sense? Any questions, guys? You guys know the drill for this. Yeah, this will hopefully wake you guys up. Or not. Who knows? Here you go. And I will call you guys back at about 6:25. There's your rooms. Hey, Somia, what room are you in? Did you have a question?
I'm so sorry. Just I come back from the ER. That's why I'm late for the class. I'm so
Oh,
sorry.
okay. No problem, no problem. I'll put you in room 5.
Okay.
There you
Thank
go.
you.
Yeah, no problem. Welcome back, you guys.
Where is the story from you, Steve? We need some mustard.
That's a story from me. Oh, that would be fun. How did I get the stomach infection? Once I know that story, I'll tell you, and it'll be an epic tale. How did I destroy it? I drank bleach. Let's see here. Everybody's back. Woohoo! should tell you guys a story. I didn't get to tell you guys the Three Little Pigs in Japanese. That's usually something I do when we come to the storytelling spot to like demonstrate how you can tell a story in not English if somebody wants to. But I never have enough time like for all the stuff I want to cover when I'm teaching this class. Like for right now, we got to jump into informative. Hey guys, so let's now totally change gears from storytelling. That's not the end of storytelling. That was your last like storytelling exercise. But hopefully you'll use all the skills of storytelling, like all the excitement that you add to your voice, all of the interest, all the drama that you add to everything you're doing, should be applied to every story, should be added to every speech you give. And you want to use story as much as possible when you're giving speeches. So your next speech in this class is an informative speech. So how many of you guys have looked ahead to see what the speech covers? Okay, good. So the instructions are, I just updated them a little bit. So we're going to look through them together. They're the exact same instructions. There's better examples that in the instructions that you've read might not be as fleshed out, especially the examples for the 3x5 cards that I'd like you guys to use. But let's jump right into what informative speech is in general. Here's all the stuff we want to cover today. There's a lot about informative speeches because they are between informative and persuasive. Those are kind of the backbone of what this type of class usually covers. So we're going to do an informative speech now, and then your final speech is also an informative speech. Between the two of them, we have a persuasive speech. So we're going to talk about what those are, informative speeches. Then we're also going to talk about what culture is and what a co-culture is, because that's what your speech is going to be about. We're going to talk about cultural humility and social identity theory and microaggressions. Woohoo! I'm really curious, though, how many of you guys know the concept or term cultural humility? How many of you guys, is that a term you're familiar with? Just only a couple. Okay. So we will talk about that. How of those guys who raised your hand, are you guys in medical school of a type? No. Jacob, how do you know about that? Usually it's only like people in nursing school who like know about that.
I'm in a sociology course right now.
Sociology. Okay, that makes sense too. Cool. I'm just curious. I only found out about it because of nursing people, and then I went, "Oh my God, I should teach this." So it's kind of gets
Absolutely.
yeah, with all this stuff. So informative speeches, let's talk about them. What are they? I'm gonna just kind of go blah for a second. So if you have anything to interrupt me with, please just talk over me and I will stop what I'm saying and we can talk about what you have to talk about. But I can only see about 4 of you at a time while I'm in this mode. So if you're like raising your hand, it'll be a minute before I see you. So just say, hey. So here we go. What is an informative speech? Well, there are 4 basic types: definitional, descriptive, explanatory, and demonstration. These definitions are important, as you'll see, because yeah, okay, there are generally 4 types, but they blur together really well. And really the point is an informative speech is one that's teaching. It's one where somebody is learning something. The whole point is to learn, right? The point could be to persuade, to change your audience. That's a persuasive speech. This one, the change you're trying to make is a change of knowledge. And that's really it. It's less aggressive than a persuasive speech. So that's nice. Let's look at what each of these are. So a definitional speech. That is a speech where the speaker attempts to set forth the meaning of concepts, theories, philosophies, or issues that may be unfamiliar to the audience. You're defining terms. It sounds kind of boring when I say it that way, right? You're not just standing up there saying, according to Webster, love is, you've probably heard speeches like that before, where everything is just according to so-and-so, but those kind of work. A lot of sermons end up being this way in church when they say, according to the ancient Greek, the word eudaimonia means finding a purpose. And in the Bible, when Paul says, those are definitional speeches. So ones that you might, examples of these would be how to identify a sociopath. That would be a definitional speech and a very interesting one, I think. What is elderly abuse? Also definitional and very helpful, right? Or the idea of human rights and how it has changed over time. Right, super informative, definitional speeches. A lot of speeches, if they're purely definitional, are fun and interesting. A lot of speeches that are not purely definitional will start as definitional speeches and then move on to be something else. You can see how that could be useful, right? So persuasive speeches could start as a definitional speech and then say, now that we all understand the same thing, now I'm going to convince you, now that we all understand what a sociopath is, now I'm going to convince you that, the next slide pops up and it's, my mother is one, or something like that. Descriptive speech is another one. So that's where you're basically describing something. The purpose of descriptive speech is to provide a detailed, vivid word picture of a person, animal, place, or object. So you're describing something. Examples: what visiting the Taj Mahal was like. So that would be a really cool speech. Another one would be my time in prison. Also could be just as vivid and interesting, but maybe not the same as a Taj Mahal visit, but it's the same idea. Or the life and times of Marie Antoinette. So if you wanted to learn about what France was like at that time, you could describe it. There's nothing about what, no judgment in that. It's just a description. Again, description speeches work really, really well with other things. You can see this popping up as part of another speech pretty obviously, I think. Third one would be explanatory speeches. Well, descriptive speeches attempt to paint a picture with words so the audience can vicariously experience it. Explanatory speeches focus on the how or why of a subject and its consequences. So, for example, how Marie Antoinette died, or how, when, and why the Japanese bow. So an explanatory speech gets into the nitty-gritty. Why is all this happening? An explanation. So still, there's not a judgment of you should be doing this. This isn't a you should bow to Japanese people when you're in Japan. This is just explaining about why it happens, or explaining how Marie Antoinette died. No, you can see how these all fit together, right, as puzzle pieces. And the last one, demonstration speeches. This is the most practical. A demonstration speech shows listeners how some process is accomplished or how to perform it themselves. So these would be how-to speeches, like how potato chips are made would be a really interesting speech, and that would be this one. Making the perfect panini would be a good demonstration speech. How to fight fires in a submarine is a speech that I've always wanted to hear because I'm very curious how on earth they do that, because it sounds like a death immediately. Your last speech, your final, is going to be a demonstration speech. So just so you know, so you can be thinking about it here on week 5. Your final is another informative speech. We circle back to it, and you will be demonstrating something to the class, how to do something. You'll be demonstrating that remotely like this. The cool thing about the final speech is that it can be, let me turn this off. The cool thing about your final speech is that it can be a fully pre-recorded video if you want. So the fact that it can be a demonstration, and that was without an audience. So like, for example, I've had students, had one who did how to change the oil in your car. And she had a friend film her doing the whole process. She even added music and like little arrows and stuff. You don't have to do that, but she did. I had 2 students who did how to build a Hello Kitty house in Minecraft. They did a team speech, and the 2 of them were in Minecraft the entire time, and just you could hear them talking, and they had little pictures in the corners. They knew how to do that, so they did. The final speech, there's a lot of room for what things you might already know how to do as far as video editing goes. The other option is to just live take us through how to do something. You could take your laptop into the kitchen and walk us through how to, well, there's a lot of things. We're going to watch a lot of examples for that one. So be thinking about that one in the back of your head. Your final is a how to do something speech. So yeah, it's in my mind one of the easier ones, which is why it's the final. I do not want you to bomb your final. It's the time where you get to show off all your skills. So those are all informative speeches. The informative speech that you'll be giving next is a definitional one. So that's one, you'll be sharing a co-culture of yours with us. So you'll be sharing a co-culture that you identify with. How many of you guys already know what a co-culture is? About half of you guys. So do you guys know the term subculture? That's a much more commonly used term, right? So we don't use the word subculture anymore because it sounds like it's less than. So communications people like me are like, no, can't say sub, even though that gets complicated. So let's watch a little video that explains exactly what I just said and walks us through what a co-culture is. A lot of you have probably already watched this video if you've looked at the instructions, but the good news is it's short.
First things first.
Let's
define
first
culture.
Is me putting this on the actual screen. That's the first thing. Calm down, Faith. All right, she calmed down. Full screen. This is not even 3 minutes, so. Oh, the dogs are about to go insane. Sorry. My partner is coming home with a new roommate right now. Okay. They warned me. I got text saying, we're about to be there. Oh.
First things first, let's define culture, shall we? Okay.
I'm sorry, you can probably still hear the dogs barking, can't you? Hold on just a second.
I don't hear anything.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Then we'll just go with it.
First things first, let's define culture, shall we? Okay. A very simple definition of culture is the sum of knowledge, beliefs, values, and patterns of behavior shared by members of a group. That's it. Pretty simple. Now let's look at a definition of culture that is specific to communication. According to communication scholar Dr. Stanley Baran, culture is the world made meaningful. It is socially constructed and maintained through communication. He goes on to add that culture limits as well as liberates us, it differentiates as well as unites us, it defines our reality and thereby shapes the way we think, feel, and act. I don't know about you, but I quite enjoy that definition of culture. All right, so now we can go on to defining co-culture, right? Wait, one more thing before we go to co-culture. We must first look at dominant culture, also known as mainstream culture. Dominant culture is the collective cultural experience held and shared by the large majority of people. So, for example, if you studied culture before, you may have compared and contrasted American and Japanese cultures. In doing this, you've looked at generalizations regarding each country's cultures. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the definition of co-culture. Co-cultures are cultural identities that exist within a larger culture. So, for example, I consider myself a part of the broad American culture, but my co-cultures could include, but are not limited to, being a Trekkie who enjoys watching the Timbers and Thorns play soccer, and I also identify as Filipino American who happens to be vegan. Those are my co-cultures. Now, if you studied culture in the past, you may be familiar with the term subculture. It's not a bad word, but the term is going by the wayside for many scholars. In recent years, there has been a shift in academia to refer to subcultures as co-cultures. Why? I'm glad you asked. The prefix sub has many definitions, and for some people, the prefix sub implies being inferior or secondary, or even smaller or less important. So, you see how the term subculture can be slightly problematic? In the last couple minutes, we've covered several terms regarding culture. First, we defined culture through a communication lens. Next, we looked at dominant culture. Then, we moved on to defining co-culture and looked at why the term subculture is a bit problematic. I've enjoyed our time together and hope that now you have a greater understanding to the many layers of culture.
All righty. She enjoyed our time together, guys. So hopefully that makes sense. Does that make sense? Co-cultures. So they can literally be anything. Anything that you consider part of your identity can be a co-culture, right? So when she listed those things of her own, you might have noticed that there was an awfully big mix as far as what could have been on that list, right? Like some of those things were things that she chose, and some of those were things she did not choose. She didn't choose to be a Filipina American. She was born that way, right? But she did choose to like watching the Thorns and the somebody play soccer. She likes soccer. She chooses to like soccer. She didn't choose, though, to be Filipina American. So some parts of our identity we get to choose, and some parts of our identity are thrust upon us. And that makes talking about identity especially complicated in an academic setting, because our identity is loaded. It's a very loaded conversational question. This concept that we are made of lots of pieces of identity that all come together and intersect and become one person is called intersectionality. And that makes us really interesting. I think it makes us extremely interesting. All of us have some part of our identities that leads us to more power, and some of us have parts of our identity that lead us to less power, right? Some of us have more pieces of our identity that might make us more powerful, and some of us have more pieces of our identity that make us less powerful. And that is a very interesting conversation that we're unfortunately not going to have in this class, but that you are probably going to have now that we've talked about it, now that we've brought it up, you're probably going to be going in your head going, I'm thinking about this if you haven't already. So I want to make sure that I mention it now because it's a big topic, just bringing up identity and then saying, now let's talk about co-cultures. It's really easy for me to wander off from that and then say, now let's each share co-cultures. But I want to say here in the beginning and make sure that I share and identify. Some people in the class will share some co-cultures of theirs that are purely fun, right? Some people in the class are going to say, my co-culture is, and their co-culture will be, like they're an artist and that they love to draw, and that will be celebrated and it'll be fun and it'll be easy to accept. Some people in the class will share a co-culture that isn't so comfortable for us to listen to or to hear. Some people in the class might share a co-culture that is painful for them to be part of. Maybe, and it might even sound like something that doesn't sound like it needs to be something they're a part of, right? Maybe somebody will share that they're a part of a religion that sounds like a burden to them. And you might be thinking, well, I wish they could just drop that. But for some people, religion is culture and it's not so easy to drop. For some people, these things are far more tied to identity than simple, than this might look as simple from the outside. So I want to mention that now because we're going to hear a lot about each other and we're going to get to know each other a lot through these speeches. And I want to make sure that this is a safe place, a very, very safe place for us to share with each other, right? So if you looked through the example, my example in there, I mentioned a few different of my own co-cultures, but they can be anything for yours, for what you share. My co-cultures that like I would share on this, I could share, like you could talk about religions. I could talk about being an atheist because that's what I am. I wouldn't talk much about that if I was giving my own speech because my atheism isn't something that I do a lot with. Like I don't, if I was to like, hey, celebrate my atheism with me, there's not a lot for you to celebrate it with me. Like I'm not going to share because what the speech boils down to is sharing 4 interesting aspects of this in my life that I want to share with you. So really my atheism personally just sort of boils down to not being a Christian anymore. So I just kind of like, well, let me tell you about how I argue with my brother who's a pastor. That's not going to be a good speech for you to listen to. I don't think, but maybe yours would be if you do something with yours. So for me, that wouldn't work well for mine. My nationality is American. And so I could be like, hey, I could talk about being an American. And I do stuff with that a lot. With the upcoming election just being 2 weeks away, personally, I don't want to talk about that, but maybe you do. Last quarter, I had somebody for the first time in my classes talk about being a Republican. I had never had somebody say that in the class of this school before. And she honestly did a great job. I just wish she would have said more, to be completely honest. She just kind of said she was a Republican and all she spent their whole speech saying, but I'm not voting for Trump. And that was her entire speech. And I was like, but what are you doing? Like what makes you so then what are you? We never learned. But so like that would be interesting to know. So if it was me, I would then boil it down to like, what other aspects of me would I want to share with you guys? I talk about in my example, if you read through the example that I play in a gay softball league in Seattle, and that was a co-culture that would be easy for me to talk about because it's something I do. And it's something that I don't think a lot of you guys are aware of. So I could talk about that, right? I could talk about going to practices. I could talk about the rituals. I could talk about the language that the teams use, because really what I want to share is 4 interesting aspects. So what interesting aspects could I share about playing softball? Like that just sounds kind of boring, maybe. Well, I would do some audience analysis and I would think, what does this group probably not know about playing softball in general, first off? Maybe you guys don't know what it's like to play in a city league. So I would talk about how softball is different than baseball. It's a lot easier when you play as an old man in a city league. I would maybe talk about that kind of stuff. And then I would say, now it's a gay league. So you probably want to know some interesting things like, for example, that the women are fought over. So it's mostly men, but the female players are always the best. And so we kind of fight over them. And it's a gay league. All the players aren't gay. We have a lot of straight players, but those are really rare. I could talk about the language we use, the jokes, because I'm sure everybody would love to hear about some of the language we share, some of the jokes, how everybody on the team calls each other girl. And it's not an insult exactly, especially because the lesbians on our team are the most powerful. It's a strange world. I could talk about that. I could talk about my team being the Cupcakes and now we're sponsored by a bar. I could talk about having met the governor, selling him Jello shots. Like there's stories I could share. That's where I think it'd become most interesting. I could talk about the time I was hit in the face with the softball and got sent to the hospital with a broken bone behind this eye, and those would start to be interesting. And then as I'm planning out this speech, that's what I'd be looking for. I'd be thinking, what would be the most interesting to a group of people? Once I figured out my 4 interesting things, my speech is mostly done. I would just then need to add research. I would need to get out of my own head and go find more online. So find out some more about gay softball to then share with you. And that's the nuts and bolts of this speech. That's basically it, right? So that would be mine. But there's a lot of other things I could share. I could also talk about being a furry. That's something that I have never heard anybody actually give a speech on, which I know for a fact I've had furries come through my classes, but I've never had one give a speach. I have neurodiversities would also be interesting. I've had one person give a speech about being autistic, and that's it. I'd love to hear more. I think the world needs to hear about those. So let's look at some examples up here just to kind of give you guys some ideas before yeah. So here are just some ideas. I want you just to look at these for just a minute. Like religions, you could talk about being Christian. If you do talk about something like being Christian, Christian is awfully close to the mainstream culture in America. But the truth is that there is no one version of Christianity. There's a ton of versions of Christianity. So if you wanted to talk about being one, talk about your specific kind. What does it do? What does yours do? And what's it like to be part of that? And what do you do? One of the example speeches we're going to watch is a student talking about being going to a Romanian youth group. It was very interesting. So Muslim, especially in America, very interesting. Buddhist, like I said, atheist, if you do something with it, yeah, absolutely. If it's part of your life, then please share it with us. I had a student share being a witch once. That was extremely interesting. American identities such as Asian American, African American, Native American, Mexican American, any type of ethnicities would work really, really well if it's something that's part of your identity. Like Canadian, Mexican, something, if you are something non-American and you're in this class, you want to talk about what it's like, those are fantastic and very easy to share. I've heard some extremely interesting speeches about Kyrgyzstan because I know we get a lot of students from there. You guys have some crazy, unique hats. So yeah, totally, that'd be great. And easy to bring in props too, to share for your visual aid. Hobbies, as long as it's part of your identity, are fantastic for this. So this is just a shotgun blast of ideas to get your spices flowing, right? Fly fishers, rock climbers, runners, car racing fans, gardening fans, stamp collectors, Star Trek fans, wine enthusiasts, skateboarders, golfers, Civil War reenactors, tennis players, classical musicians, web hackers, pool players, cat owners, anime lovers, indie devs. I don't know. There's a million things you could be, right? Maybe that job, if it's part of your identity, like police officers sure seem to act like being a police officer is a part of your identity. Maybe that, or a teacher, or nurses, or pastors. Those are jobs where people feel like it's part of who you are. If that's you, then yeah. Maybe you're a daycare worker and that's part of who you are. Maybe you're a nurse and it's part of who you are. Maybe you work in, maybe you're going into, what's that? Funeral services, and that's part of who you are, right? Political identities, Republicans, Democrats, progressives, if it's part of who you are, would be great. And then others, cancer survivors, that's like, there's a lot of other things that you could be that I haven't thought of, right? Sexual or gender identities. I had a student once give her speech about being a radical feminist specifically as a Japanese radical feminist. And it was very specifically from Japan, like as what it's like to be in Japan. She was just here visiting. Very interesting speech. According to her, she got death threats all the time. So wildly interesting. Yeah. So what about you? Who are you? And what do you want to tell us about that? Right? This is your opportunity to share something of yourself with us, to celebrate it, and also to raise some awareness about that thing. Right? So what do you want us to know about that thing? There's a lot that you can tell us. You're the expert. So I'm guessing a lot of you are thinking right now, thinking about what on earth you could talk about, which means it's a perfect time to put you in small groups to talk. So I'm going to put you guys into small groups to talk about what you might talk about. Only for about 10 minutes. So let's put you guys in new small groups. And in your small groups, oh, here we go. Oh, I even have, this is better than I even thought. Let me put this back up on the screen. So in your small groups, I want you to share your ideas for your co-cultures. If somebody's sitting there in your group going, I don't have any idea, I don't do anything, I'm not anything, then help both pull those ideas out of each other. If somebody has no ideas, I mean, you're a student if you're nothing else, right? And then as people share their co-cultures, share with each other things you wonder about it, because that can help them tell them what to talk about in their speech. And then this speech requires visual aids. So do you have any ideas for what your visual aids can be? Some of the best visual aids for this speech are artifacts. So be thinking, do you have artifacts that you could use, you could show us? Kind of show and tell you, right? It's pretty cool. So let's recreate some rooms. And here you guys go. Let's go ahead and hang out in these rooms until 7. I'll call you back if you guys are done in your groups. Before then, take a short break. Otherwise, I'll call you back at 7.
Steve,
Yep.
are we allowed to use like a short video as our visual aid? Like a
Yes, you are.
30-second? That's okay?
Absolutely, yeah. As long as it's not over half of your speech.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Steven Universe. I don't like it. I don't like it because the characters in Steven Universe are all likable.
You know, I still haven't finished the last season. I feel like 4 or 5 episodes. And now we haven't watched the movie, and that's why I paused on watching.
And then we have Steven Universe.
Then we have High Down. And then we also have Vox Machina.
We have 2 bucks.
I haven't started it yet. I was like, first one was fine. Small plane, lots of airdrops, lots of turbulence. Second thing, but the guy beside me in the middle of the picture. I was like, you're in the middle, dude.
I don't know. Ruben you for that.
Right?
The only reason I even went to that meeting is because I ran into my department sheriff and then you know, kind of. If I hadn't have seen it, it would have just written off as. There's one cool guy that I've known him for decades. Too. Yes, I really want him to work there. All right, see you guys later. Yeah. You guys feeling like you know what you're going to talk about? Good, 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 good. Excellent. Mm-hmm. 10 seconds. Three, two, one. Well, alrighty. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Everybody feeling pretty good? Everybody have at least an idea for today? All right, good. All right, so the next thing I want to do is look at the actual assignment with you and talk about how this assignment is going to be a little bit different from the usual. First, before we look at the assignment, let's talk about how it will be different. So this week we have class today and next Thursday. Next week, Tuesday, we don't have class. And that's because there's just no school that day. It's a, what is that called?
Advisor day.
Advising day. Yeah, it's advising day. So there's no classes that day. So there's no classes on Tuesday of next week. And then Thursday of next week is Halloween. So, and then the following Tuesday after that is election day. So those two nights are terrible nights to have class. Like, and those would be nights where you would be performing. So half of you would be performing on either Halloween night or election night. So that's not happening this quarter. That's a disaster. So instead, what we're going to do is you guys are going to have some practice in that whole making a video and submitting it thing. And we're going to make this speech remote. So I went ahead and made sure that this is all cool with my boss, and she thinks this is a really good experience for you all. And I think it is too. For one, I think it's a good experience to not be sitting in a class like this during election night this year of all times. So be with your families, please. But I want to, yeah, so what this will be like is this week, tonight and Thursday, we're going to be talking about how to make the best speech you can. When you do make your speech, you will be recording it very similarly to your final. So you can record it in whatever format you want. You can have a friend record it with you. You can just set your phone up somewhere, prop it up, and have it record you. And that's just fine. But the main thing is to show your face as much as possible. You can do some editing with it. We'll talk about that more Thursday as far as like some ways to do that. There's a video that I have for you to watch later. There's a lot of stuff Thursday, but tonight I want to make sure that you understand the basic gist of what's expected for this speech in general. And how this speech will work is, so after, because like that means we'll not see each other. So this is all going to be on a discussion board. So after Thursday, you will then have a week to work on and create your perfect little speech video that you're proud of. You will post it to the discussion board by Sunday of next week, not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after that. So you're going to have a week to work on it. That week has Halloween on it. So, and the day we don't have class. So that's going to have some time for you that I'm sure you'll be busy, but you'll have that week to work on your speech and post it by that Sunday night. And then, since we don't have class again the following Tuesday for election, instead of that class, you will have an activity to go watch 6 people's of your classmates' speeches and give feedback to them and reflect on them and your own work. So hopefully that makes sense. But this speech will then be a remote experience. The final is not a remote experience. You can create a video or you can perform live. Those are your choices. But regardless of which you do, we will watch it together in class. So even if you have a speech video that you recorded, you need to be here in class to present the video, and you share your screen and present the video to the class. It's not something that you turn in to me early ahead of time. It's something you bring to class as a video. Does that make sense? Whereas this one will be something that you'll post to a discussion board, and it will take the place of us meeting together. Is you'll go to the discussion board and you'll be able to talk to each other and watch each other's work. And this will hopefully give you some experience with a little bit of video editing and a little bit of working with this medium intentionally, which I think is valuable. So, and it'll also give you a week off, which if I had not have been sick last week would have been a really cool thing. With me being, well, actually, you guys came. Never mind. You were here. With me being gone, I feel like I haven't taught this class this quarter, and I'm feeling really like a lazy little sack. But thank you for being patient with me. So let's go look at the assignment now that I explained all that. Any questions so far?
Okay, so just to clarify, we have class Thursday. We don't have class at all next week, and then we have class Thursday of the week after that, but not Tuesday.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. The Thursday after election. Yeah.
I have a question. Would you be able to post like an announcement that has the dates when we don't have class? So that would be really helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good idea. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Catherine, you remind me of Morticia Adams in like the best way ever.
Yeah.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Taylor. I tried to figure out which movie I can see here with Catherine. Thank you.
That's so good.
Our teacher.
You guys are flattering me so much.
I think my favorite line of hers is, I don't remember what it was in, but it was something where she says to somebody, "Mind if I smoke?" And they're like, "Oh, sure." And then she just sits there and smoke wafts off of her. Just goes. I wish I could do that on command. I wish I could just, man, mind if I smoke? Anyway, let's look at the assignment. Any other questions or anything else I can do for you guys? This is good stuff. All right, let's look at the assignment. So here is the assignment. Performance, co-culture. So this is a discussion board, which is different from your normal speech assignments, just so you know that. Otherwise, you interact with it the same, except at the bottom, you'll see a place to post. This is that video that we just watched. So this speech is 6 minutes long, give or take 1 minute. So that means it could be, that seems a little short. So that means it could be 5 minutes long. I'm sticking with it because that's what it says, but that feels really short. But let's go try and aim for 6 minutes. And it says you may use note cards. Boy, this is just wrong left and right. Hold on just a second. What is going on with these instructions? I just fixed them while you guys were in there, but maybe I fixed them too much. Did I over-fix them? Was that the same as the instructions you guys had seen when you saw them before? No.
No,
Yeah.
you had
Yep,
you
I
had
thought they were.
7 to 8 minutes, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the rest, maybe I know about the no curse. Yes, it was there. But yeah, you updated them. I got an alert that you updated them when
Yeah.
on
I
the
copied and
first.
pasted and it was wrong. All right. Well, I think I just fixed it. Anyway, we're in charge of this class. We can make it whatever we want. But let's go back and look at it again. Thank you guys for your patience. So 7 minutes, give or take 1 minute. So now it can be somewhere between 6 to 8 minutes. It gives you that 2-minute window to land. You must use note cards. So I do want you to use note cards for this speech. That said, you know, if you use them, as long as you have them, it looks like you're using them, that's great. I want you to use them for this speech. Since you're recording this speech, if you instead have nothing, that's okay. I would just rather you not try to memorize this speech. So note cards just work better. We're going to talk Thursday about the exact nuts and bolts of how to use note cards, but like how to make them. But that's the idea for this one, is instead of having a script, like a piece of paper that you have written out that you read it from, I want you to try and transition to using just note cards. I want you to have two sources that you cite verbally, that you cite out loud. We're going to talk Thursday about how to do that, but that's which part of this speech. You have to do some research. And it has to have eye contact. Doesn't mean the entire time. You do not want to be eye contacting like you're staring right at the camera the entire time, but you do need to have eye contact, and that's part of the rubric. And you need to have a visual aid of some kind, and it needs to increase the impact of your speech. So that means the visual aid cannot just be for fun. It needs to actually mean something. We'll explain that in a second too. And then it has to have a good intro and an ending. So all of these things need to be in there for this speech. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's look at all these parts. First, I say the instructions, make sure that you pick a co-culture of yours to share. This is kind of what we all just talked about. It's actually very similar to what we just talked about. The second part I say is research. So since you're picking a co-culture that you're already an expert on, you probably don't think that you need to do research. But since you have to have two sources, you need to have research. So, and you're going to be sharing 4 interesting aspects, right? So those could be anything. Here's a lot of different ideas for what those 4 aspects could be. You could talk about membership. How do people, or how do you know you're a member? You could talk about symbols and language, values, behavioral norms, activities and ceremonies, the history, how widespread it is. Any one of these could work. This last one, a story from your life as a person, this one could be all 4 if you have 4 good stories, or you could share 2 good stories and then also talk about how this is different in somewhere else in the world, and you could talk about the history of your co-culture. That would work for a speech. All of that would work, but you do need to have research, at least something. So for this part, the easiest place to do research is to talk to somebody else you know who is also part of the same co-culture. You usually know at least somebody else, one other person. That's probably the best place to start. So for example, if I was to share about my speech about being playing in the Emerald City Softball League, my research could start, I could go on their website. That would be a good place to look. Maybe I'll find some background history that I could talk about in my speech. But another place to start would be talking to anybody else who plays on my team. And I could say, hey, do you have any cool stories? Do you have any funny stories that I could share for my speech? And maybe they would have something. And then I could cite them in my speech. I could say, you know, I didn't have any crazy stories to share, but, you know, Billy Bob Joe, who also plays on the Cupcakes, he had the story, and then I could share his story, and I just verbally cited that source and then shared it. That's research. That might not feel like traditional research, but that is research, and that would work for your speech. Maybe you could talk, you know, to your family. Maybe if you're talking about something that they're part of. Any one of those things would work as far as research goes. I've had people do even deeper research. I mean, you could like get online, you can use the school library, you can pull up journals, you can do literally anything for the research here, but you only need two sources for this. So this is the beginning. When we get to your persuasive speech, you're going to need more sources, and they're going to need to be a little bit more complicated. But for this speech, it's not so much. Any questions about that part? Cool. All right. So in my example here, just to make sure that you guys know that this is here, you can take a look at it. My example, I say, you know, I did 8 interesting facets, right? The ECSA softball league. My current team is called the Cupcakes. How do I know I'm a member? I talk about how I became a member, paid my dues. I have a uniform. I could talk about my co-culture symbols or team mascot. It's a Care Bear with a bat. I'm about to hit a cupcake. I could use that as my visual aid. I could show my jersey. I could show a photo of me and my team. I could talk about the language we use. Values. We could talk about how we don't try and win. We play for fun. All of these, what's in purple, could work, right? And then once you've decided that, next thing you want to do is think about your visual aid. So your visual aid needs to be something that's not just for fun, but adds impact. So that could be a lot of different things. Since you are making a video, you get to like not accidentally make mistakes with your visual aid. So your visual aid could be digital, and you can, if there anything goes wrong with your computer, you can of course just refilm. So that's good. That's good news for you. A PowerPoint would work for your visual aid, could work for your visual aid. And there are ways to film yourself if you use a laptop. There's a lot of different ways to do filming yourself and to do with something digital, right? There are low-tech ways to work in also. You could hold up pictures to a camera. That would work as long as it doesn't look too clunky. Artifacts, like I mentioned, work really, really well. Really, as long as it's not just for fun. I've had students in the past. I had one student who always stands out, who had a whole PowerPoint where it had literally had pictures of puppies on each slide. And I remember about halfway through at asking, like, what are the puppies for? Because his speech was about being Mexican. And he said that it was for fun. And I was like, oh, I was not clear enough on this, and you're going to be an example for the rest of my life. I'm so sorry. Yeah, don't just do that. I do that when I'm teaching because I'm not giving a speech to pass a class. Sometimes in my slides, I'll add little cute animals because I am bored to death. But that's a totally different thing that's happening. Add cute things to yours if they add to the impact. He just would pick up literally just like a puppy. That was all it was. And I'm like, this is a Mexican puppy, I hope. And it was not. So, any questions about visual aids? Think outside the box on this one, right? Some visual aids that I've seen that I was like, oh yeah, that works, are clothing. Like you could just dress like, hey, I'm going to talk about being Chinese American. And I've had a student wear full regalia and she looked incredible. Yeah, great idea. I've had visual aids be a handout that students gave out through the through chat. Like they just published a chat. It's like, hey, you want more information about this? I made a really cool visual handout and it's now in the chat at the end of my speech. So if you want more information about how to get involved with this thing that I'm a part of, that works too. So be thinking outside the box. What could your visual aid be? I don't know. And then last, note cards. My pictures are broken in this. I need to fix those. I'll fix the pictures here, and we're going to talk about that Thursday anyway. But you want to use note cards, so 3x5 cards or 5x7 cards, or you can just cut up your own paper. I don't want you to have full sheets of paper. Something small that you have your notes on.
That's because you bite your freaking nails.
I was cutting my cuticle.
They're there to prompt you to know what to say, right? That's what your cards are there for. So just want to make sure that you guys know about that, right? Any questions about any of that so far? How this is going to work? Okay, cool. Excellent. So then the next thing I want to talk with you guys about, since we're going to be hearing about a lot of people's co-cultures, is the concept of cultural competence versus cultural humility. So I mentioned cultural humility earlier. The idea of cultural humility is a difficult one to kind of just explain. So I'm not going to wash you with my voice anymore, because if you've heard me talk for very long, it gets to become really easy to fall asleep. And I'm pretty sure it's because I'm just so easy to listen to. But let's watch somebody else explain it instead. So we talked about, I mentioned this earlier, cultural humility, right? It's an important concept. I think that yeah, let's watch this person explain it. I think it'll become apparent immediately why we're watching this. But the gist is you're going to hear a lot of people share themselves with you, and there's going to be a chance that you're going to be like, hey, I want to know more about what you're sharing, which is wonderful. So let's talk about how to do that gracefully.
Cultural competency and cultural humility. You may have heard these terms before, possibly in the context of healthcare settings, and not quite understood what they meant. Let's go over what these terms mean and how they apply to everyday life. To be culturally competent is to learn about other cultures, control your biases, and adapt your behaviors and communication style considering the background of people around you. The goal of cultural competency is effective and informed interaction across various cultures. At face value, cultural competency sounds ideal, but it may actually lead us to rely on generalizations about certain groups rather than recognizing the uniqueness of each individual. We also have to ask ourselves, is it realistic or even possible for people to learn everything about other cultures and become completely bias-free? That's where cultural humility comes in. To be culturally humble is to be aware of social power imbalances, respect other people's values and beliefs, and continuously reflect on your own biases. With cultural humility, there's no expectation that you memorize everything there is to know about other groups. Instead, it's a lifelong process of asking yourself how your own biases might impact the way you treat and understand others, alongside work to minimize that impact. Cultural competency is a goal, while cultural humility is a mindset. Let's go over a few ways to practice cultural humility in our daily lives. Recognize that no culture is superior to another. Become comfortable with reflecting on and acknowledging mistakes you've made. Be honest when you're not sure about something. Learn about other cultures with the awareness that you'll never reach perfect understanding. Ask the people in your life if you can have open discussions and hold each other accountable during your learning journey. The great thing about cultural humility is that it acknowledges that no one can get it right all the time. In fact, a key component of cultural humility is being open about what we haven't learned yet. Although it can feel really uncomfortable to admit when we're wrong or don't know something, that vulnerability leaves room for us to continuously learn, grow, and promote equity and inclusion in our communities.
Right. So hopefully gist of that made sense. So cultural competence used to be the gold standard. It's what we were taught. And so if we were still embracing that idea, as you learned about each person's co-culture, I would be encouraging you to memorize what they said so that you would understand how to get along. And I'd be telling you, like, hey, tell us what you want us to know about how to get along with people like you. And so you'd each see yourself as an ambassador, basically, for your co-culture. But that's a weird thing to do when you think about it, because everybody's different, right? Nobody really is an ambassador for any co-culture. We're all just individuals. So what I always think of for this, but there is a value though to cultural competence. What I think of when I think about this is going to Japan. So I lived in Japan for off and on for many years actually. And when I was studying Japanese in high school, I took a Japanese class and we learned how to use chopsticks. And I learned like some really valuable lessons, some about chopsticks. Some like, for example, let me teach you guys. If you ever go to Japan and you're eating with chopsticks, some things to never do. Never separate your chopsticks one from another like this in each hand. That's really, really rude. That's like, would be similar to breaking a fork in half. It's just not something you should do. It's just rude. Similarly, you should never stand your chopsticks up in your bowl of rice like that, like I'm demonstrating right there, because that's what you do at funerals. You do as an offering to the dead. You leave that every day, not at funerals, but every day. You leave a bowl of rice with chopsticks sitting up in it at the altar in your home to your dead ancestors. Also, you should never pass food from chopsticks to chopsticks. So like if I had something that you wanted, I should never pick it up from my food and hand it to you and you take it from my chopsticks to yours. You should never do that. That's exceptionally rude. The reason is because that's done at funerals with bones. In a very traditional Japanese funeral, the body's cremated, and the larger bones, everybody sits in a circle, and with very long funeral chopsticks, you pass the large bones around from chopsticks to chopsticks until they're at the end set into a box. You would never know that if you hadn't deeply studied Japanese, but you would know never to pass food from chopsticks to chopsticks because that's an incredibly rude thing to do. So what we just did was a lesson in cultural competence, right? And you're all just a little bit more competent with how to navigate the world of Japanese culture. And all of that is true. And very valuable. It's all true and valuable if now you won't offend Japanese people. But all that to say, do all Japanese people act that way? For sure, no. There's got to be some Japanese people somewhere who just stick their chopsticks right up in their rice and don't give a fuck. It's a big country full of lots of people, right? There's got to be people who pass food from chopsticks to chopsticks and go, yeah, I don't care. Just like there are in America. There's got to be all sorts of people everywhere who do everything. So the last time I was in Japan, I remember I was having dinner with the mayor of Fukushima City. Remember the place that blew up with that nuclear meltdown? It was before that, but I was having mayor with him, and I was eating steak, and I, being me, took my fork and like this, and I stabbed my steak with it, and then I took my knife like this, and I was cutting my steak and eating it because that's what I do. And I hear him from across this table say in Japanese, "Wow, Americans eat like barbarians." And I said, and I just lost it. I was like, laughed my face off and said, "Oh, no, 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 just me." And I gestured with my to my face with my fork, "Just me." But I said it in Japanese. "Oh, no, 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 no. Ore dake desu yo." Which made him lose it. He felt very embarrassed that I understood Japanese, that I understood what he had said. It got me a bottle of sake, yay! But it was one of those moments where he was having a moment of like, this doesn't match my cultural competency training. Americans aren't supposed to eat steak that way. And I'm like, ugh. No, just me. No, just like eating rice. If you could go to Japan right now and you might walk into a restaurant and everyone has their chopsticks standing up in their rice bowls, and you're like, what did I walk into? And it's just restaurant rude boy. I don't know. I've never seen it happen, but I'm positive that it's there just because it's a big, 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 big world. So that's the problem with cultural competence, is that no person matches. No one matches the lesson. The lessons are really valuable though. Like that is still true stuff. If you go to a Japanese restaurant and you want to be really polite, do those things. It's totally true. There's a lot more. You should never let your chopsticks touch the table. You should, there's like a whole list of things, but does it matter? Another way to do it is to instead, every time you go and eat food with a Japanese person, to say, "Hey, how do you use these chopsticks?" And then have them tell you, and then go, "Cool, this time that's how I'm going to do it." That's another way. And that's much more the cultural humility path to doing things. That's every person you meet, you say, "Who are you? And how are you going to do things?" You're not an ambassador for all whatever you are. You're just you. And that's how I want us to approach this in this class. So we're going to hear so many different things. Somebody in this class is going to be like, "I am a collector of curiosities. Here is my cabinet. I have shrunken heads." And you're going to be like, "That is wild and interesting." And they're going to be like, "Let me tell you about my friends and family who do the same thing." And you're going to make all sorts of assumptions because that's natural to do. But I want to encourage us to let that person be that person and not let them speak as an ambassador for all curiosity collectors, right? So let them each be their own thing. And if you can do that, successfully practice that in this class, maybe you can do that outside this class too. It's just a good skill to have. Just let people be like, "Hey, I have ADHD," and let them go, "Cool, what's that mean for you?" And then find out, because finding out for each individual you actually meet is so much more valuable, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Honestly, it reminds me of because I'm autistic, and the amount of times I've heard, "Oh my God, I never would have guessed. You don't look autistic." And I'm like, what am I supposed to look like? Or like also being a Black person who has more of a northern way of speaking, people are like, "Oh my God, you talk white." What do Black people sound like then? Like that is
Right.
such a big no-no, is telling a Black person you act white. Like
Right.
what the hell?
Also, is that what I'm supposed to sound like that then, huh? Okay,
No,
well, damn.
exactly. It's like, okay, so white people sound like what then? And Black people sound like what then? That I had a white girl one time. She was like, "I act more Black than you," but she was like a slut, and it was like, that's not something you want to say to me. Like,
So you're
you're
saying
ghetto,
Black
you're not
people are
Black.
sluts. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's unpack that, shall we? Ooh, that's good. Ooh. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yes. Anybody else? Awesome. 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 So within that context, there's an excellent chance that somebody is going to say, like, "I'm something," and you're going to have questions about it, right? You're going to be like, "Okay, Okay, but I want to know more about that thing you just said you are. Like when the girl who gave her speech about being a witch gave her speech about being a witch, I remember there was a boy in the class from Kyrgyzstan, and he wanted to know so much about her. I think he wanted to date her is what I think was going on, but I think he wanted to know so much about her, and he did not know how to ask. And so he was just like, and so he kind of came across very angry. Was like, tell me more about you. And it was like, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Conversely, I had a woman in one of my classes once, and a student gave a speech about liking art, and they had a very interesting accent as they did it. And this student, who I know, she was not meaning anything negative at all. She just had a neurodiversity. At the end of the speech, asked the student, where do you come from? Well, the student came from America. They just had a really interesting accent. So those kinds of situations are called microaggressions. And I want to also make sure we avoid those. So let's watch a video about what microaggressions are, and then let's talk about them. Because sometimes these are just so easy to do without knowing you're doing them if you don't know what they are. So let's watch another short video.
For people who
where microaggressions are going to be compared to mosquito bites.
For people who still don't think that microaggressions are a problem.
Oh, you're so well spoken.
Just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite.
Ugh, it's a compliment.
Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while...
No, where are you really from?
Cleveland?
Sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date...
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me? Going grocery shopping.
You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
Commuting to work.
So when are you gonna have a baby?
Watching TV.
We have to keep the Redskins' name. It's part of our culture and history.
Or just walking down the street with your partner.
I couldn't even tell you were gay.
Mosquitoes seem to pop up everywhere.
Do you know John? Give me shopping advice. I love Cher too.
And getting bit by mosquitoes every goddamn day.
Can I touch your hair?
Multiple times a day.
So pretty.
Can I touch it, please?
Can I please?
Is fucking annoying. And makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes. Which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares?
Just another angry black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years.
Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow, my dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time.
You're all so exotic. Wow.
And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions.
So yeah. So about those microaggressions, does that sound familiar to anybody here? Has anybody had that kind of experience and would be willing to share with the class? Because I think it can be helpful for people who don't experience those to hear examples of like real life experiences. Only if people feel comfortable to share though.
Yeah, like with the where you're from thing, what always comes to mind for me is that like white or European people aren't from the Americas either, right? They're like from Germany or Poland or Russia. So that's just what I think about as well.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I'm not from here.
I do have an experience about that. I mean, I just realized it after watching the video when someone said, "Oh, you speak good English." Like I was just immigrated from Indonesia to the US, and for some reason, everybody just surprised that I speak good English. Like I didn't even know that you're from Indonesia. I thought you were here like all the time. Yeah, we speak English in Indonesia. I mean, that's not, but yeah, that kind of things like make me wonder. Um, um, I mean, I don't think much about it, but I take it as a compliment. But well, after I watch the video, um, that's kind of a micro. Yeah, come
I
to
think
think of it, it's kind of if I think much about it, then yeah, it's kind of annoying. Like, yeah, we do learn English in Indonesia, so I can
yeah,
speak. Yeah, something like that. So it
no, yeah,
happens.
absolutely. I think
And
that
the
is a
thing with that,
microaggression.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
The thing with that too, Vanessa, is like it really does make you think too, because I know I'm pretty sure I've done that to like a couple people in this class where I'm like, are you Russian or Ukrainian? And I'm just like, I don't mean it in like a oh my god, you sound like you're not from here type of way. It's more of like a, because I know that there's a difference between Russia and Ukraine. But if you like, there was one gentleman like with Evgeny and Elena, they just answered the question, and it could have been rude, they didn't tell me otherwise. But I remember one time there was one man I did ask, and I was like, are you Russian or Ukrainian? He was like, don't ever compare me to a Russian, or don't ever compare me to a Ukrainian. Whereas some people would think that it's just everybody knows that, or not everybody knows, but it's just one of those things that's kind of like, yeah, it's really none of my business either way. But I'm glad that you answered it. Whereas like with other people, it's like the end of the world kind of question where he like damn near slapped me in my face, and I didn't know why.
It's weird, right? Yeah, I knew people in Japan, like other exchange students from America, who would get very angry when they were asked, "Are you American or Canadian?" And I would be like, "How are they supposed to know? Like, why be that proud of being American?" Also, this was of like 30 years ago, but like, ooh.
I remember when I moved here, it was my first 4th of July, and I'm living at Woodinville. So I was sitting close to the park. There is a nice lake, and with a friend, and two couples come and start asking me with my friend, what are you doing here? And I was I thought they was asking me like a simple question, and I didn't think they will get aggressive after. And my friend told them, why you are asking us? And the woman respond by, because you don't like someone who live in the area. And she starts asking, she starts saying, okay, you need to show me your ID. And I was still stupid at this time. I didn't know I don't have to show my ID to everybody, And I told her I'm living at this address, so I can sit on the park. And she still act like I'm going to call the police. You don't like someone who can live here. It was so embarrassing for me.
Wow.
Is that
Yeah.
that's just straight up racist, isn't it? Or like, because
Yeah.
that's not
She was
micro
a white
anything. That's
woman.
big.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's horrible. I'm so sad that happened. And angry.
Oh, that's fine.
Ugh.
Because I met so many nice people here, so not only one stuff happened to me or two, I'm going to judge everybody or get upset or something. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
fine.
that's good. But thank you for sharing. I appreciate you sharing that. That's the type of thing that if people don't share and we don't hear about, we all think doesn't happen, So thank you for at least sharing it.
I'm still asking myself how people who live at Woodinville need to be look like what?
Right. Yeah. What we're supposed to have. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mia's like experience kind of reminds me of that where are you from thing that I mentioned earlier as well. Because it seems like they just have this extreme arrogance when it's like your great grandparents aren't from here as well, right? And so that's what yeah.
Right. Like,
So I
especially
guess like just a couple parents being or like a couple generations makes you like God.
right. In the Pacific Northwest, especially, like, unless you're Native American, you haven't been here long at all. It's like, what? Like, cool. Unless you have time. Yeah. What were you saying, Jalen?
There's another silly example. I'm sorry, I talk a lot, but like I'm very passionate about this stuff. There's kind of another silly example that I think of, like with what London just said. I don't know if he's experienced it, but me as a Black woman, whenever I become passionate about like modern day not profiling per se, but like how I'm very big on institutional racism or institutionalized racism where it like drops down the trickle effect, blah blah blah. There's always that one white son of a bitch that is like, you know, Irish people were slaves too, where they just have to like it's a pissing match, you know, like we can never, doesn't matter really what it, like white people were enslaved once or black people sold their own people, you know, it's always kind of that pulling that out of the hat to kind of try to silence those voices with I'm sure it happens with Mexicans and Latinos. I'm sure it happens. I know it happens with blacks. I'm sure it happens with Asians. But literally, especially natives as well. My best friend is native, and she's like blonde hair, blue eyes, native, but she is like, you know, she qualifies for all of the genealogy and all that. But people they see a white girl, and she like it's the opposite end of the spectrum where I'm mixed, so my mom's white, and I was raised by my white mom, but people just see me as a black woman. So, and I'm a very passionate woman, and so I'm the angry black woman trope, and it's just I'm not allowed to be angry because you know why go back to Africa, you know? But even though my grandparents are from here,
Right.
There's
I
also some.
have oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I have an aunt that's drives me a little crazy. Uh, I mean, she was an immigrant before and now she's a US citizen and all that, but she's always talking about immigration for some reason. And the fact that I think that's not probably just her, but there's probably a lot of in the culture of the Hispanic culture when they just like, I mean, yeah, being a US resident citizen, it's a great thing. It's part of the American dream, but I think it's not the fact that because we are, if we're residents, US citizens, we shouldn't even talk about in front of other people about that. And she gets so deep into it and she just thinks like, I don't know, she kind of bothers me in that fact.
Oh.
is it
So
like the
yeah, but I
victim
mean,
mentality that bothers you? Is it like that? It's like
huh?
is it like a victim thing to you?
No, it's more like because I don't care, but it's just more like why I mean where do you came from? Why would you should know where you came from? And the fact that not everybody has the same chance as she does, it's just more like yeah, it's but again, it's nothing that affects me. It's just bothering that I mean, honestly, I do have some family that they're still not American citizens, but I respect everybody.
Like, why is that your personality?
Yeah,
She gets
no, it's
upset
just
about it.
no, it's more of yeah, she just like jumps into it. And some of my family members, they're just like, yeah, when she comes, I'm not coming.
Oh.
That stuff, that stuff happens all the time. And the rudest thing that I heard or experienced, this is from the person exactly as I am. So now, I mean, never ever any of Americans or non-Americans, like people from other country, never told me you have so ridiculous accent. But the Ukrainian people always, oh, you hear yourself. You have so accent. Oh, you pronounce this word incorrect. I know I know in the moment when I'm speaking up, I can hear that I have an accent or I change the word or and say it in an other way. But other people, oh yeah, we can understand you. You're great. Ukrainians, oh,
Oh.
I remember one friend of mine, and she's from Ukraine, so she's not do not speak English like at all. And I'm like trying to do something, and we met each other in Canada, and I tried to speak English, and she looked at me like, hmm. How, do you think he really understand you? Yeah, he can understand me. I know I have an accent. And this is ridiculous. The same thing with Daira, because they experience the same thing and judge each other in the same level. Oh, ridiculous. Oh, hate this thing. Really. When people ask me, am I Russian or am I Ukrainian? I'm okay with it because I know that I sound like a Russian and people frustrated about it because I'm from Soviet Union, past-Soviet Union country. I'm okay with it. I can share my culture thing with pleasure. I'm proud of it. It's part of me. But when the same people from the same country treats me bad, why? We are the same. We are should be common.
Yeah.
Mm.
Similarly to the, go for it, Amy. I know you've been
No,
waiting.
no, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go for it. You've been waiting.
I was just gonna say, like, I think everybody should have a little bit of cultural humility too, you know. When I was living in Alaska for the first time, I would get Alaskan natives would come up to me and be like, are you Japanese or are you Asian? And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense, I'm like,
What is that question?
yeah, or, are you Chinese or are you Asian? And that's the kind of question I would get. And I was like, how ignorant, And then, but when I asked them, what tribe are you from? They're like, oh, we're not, we don't have tribes, we go by corporations. And I'm like, so what are you? And they're like, you pick. And I'm like, I don't know. Why would I have to pick what culture you're from? And they're like, no, you pick. That's the culture. That's what they are. They're you pick. You pick.
Oh,
get it? Get it? So. Yeah, I was the same way. So, I mean, I think everybody should have some cultural humility to them.
That's hilarious. I was like, you pick? Okay, I fell right into that. That was excellent. That was good. That was good. Jacob, do you have more to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add similar to what Ilana was saying. I'm from the South, so I speak very familiarly with people. I will call people that I've never met hun, dear, and I try to turn that off when I get up here. I've lived here for about 8 years, so I've gotten pretty good at that switch. But when I first came here, I got a lot of stares and I don't know you like that comments just because I would be like, oh, thank you, dear. Have a great day. And they're like, what? So it's just, I came off as microaggressions at first, but I was just like, oh, I'm just way insinuating me into their lives.
Right.
You can
Like,
call me
man.
Hunter Deer anytime you want, so you know.
Caitlin's
I
okay
appreciate
with
it.
I love it. Anybody else? All righty. All right. We had a really good conversation, guys. So my last question for you guys is just a check-in, temperature check with you guys. How many of you guys feel like you have a pretty good idea of what you think your speech is going to be about? Still kind of iffy. Okay. That's pretty good. Then that kind of answers some other questions then, because then the next question would be, do you know what your visual aid is going to be? And then the other question would be, do you know where to go for sources? So the last thing I want to do with our last 10 minutes of class then is, that's 12 minutes, is to put you guys back into small groups and let you talk, because some of this time is the more valuable time for you guys to kind of brainstorm with each other. So before you leave class today, I would love it if everybody had an idea for this speech, had 3 ideas before you left. You don't have to. You can leave without these ideas all you want. But I'd love it if you, before you left, you knew, had at least an idea of what your co-culture could be. It'd be best if you left with 2 ideas. So when you're in your small group, share what you think you're going to talk about and what your backup might be, right? Tell your group what your backup could be. Because sometimes that backup, your group will go, what? You're that? You're going to talk, you were going to talk maybe about being a ninja? I want to hear about that. So share your backup plan. And then the second thing I want you to talk about is what you think your visual aids could be. If they're objects and items, go get them and show them to your group now and say, like, what do you think about these? And then the third thing is where you think you could go to get your 2 sources. A lot of people have a hard time with that. So I want you to talk with your group, like, what could you do? Where could you go? Real quickly, yeah, cool. Any questions about this? How this will work? And then this is the last thing for tonight. So you can go from here. But please definitely check in with your group before you leave. If your whole group is 100% great, then you can leave. Any questions?
Can a source also qualify as a visual aid? For example, if I use like a map of Alaska, like dividing it into the different regions,
Yeah.
and then I just had the source like at the bottom.
If you have to
Or if
verbal,
I'm sorry, if I verbalize the source.
yep. As long as you verbalize it, that's the key. Yeah. As long as you verbalize the source, that's the practice for this speech. And this is, and to be honest, that's the main way people lose points in this speech, by the way, is not verbalizing those sources. I don't know what it is. That's just a hurdle that a lot of people have, is saying out loud, according to so and so, is just a weird hurdle. And I want you to be in the habit of doing that because it adds what's called ethos to your speech, which will matter when we get to the persuasive speech a lot more, but it adds character. It makes you look more powerful as you speak, which is what I want in all of your speeches. Any other questions? That was an excellent one, Kaylin. Any other ones? Because yes, you can totally do that.
Really fast. I wanted to talk to you after class. How do am I able to come back into the room or
Yeah,
like?
yeah. When you leave your small group, you'll come back here. I'll probably have my phone number up and say, hey, I'm still here. I'm just eating. Send me a text. And then I'll just come back
Okay,
with like a chicken's finger hanging out of my face or something like that.
understandable.
One other thing that is also a totally reasonable visual aid that also rarely happens, but to think outside the box, is a skit. So I've had people do this only a couple times, but like say you're from another country and you want to have like act out with a person from your country a thing that happens in your country or your culture. Super cool idea. So just be thinking outside the box for that visual aid. Could be a lot of different things, right? All right, here are your rooms. Enjoy. And I'll see you Thursday. It's really good to see you guys again. I could share that to the breakout rooms. I didn't know I could do that. It's very cool.
I've just a little bit of information to tell you.
Hello.
So this Thursday, I have some family plans coming up. So I just want to let you know, like, about like probably like an hour with like when we're in the meeting. I might just like head out, but I'll probably like say hi or anything like that. But I will watch the rest of the meeting like the night of on the recording.
Okay, sure, yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Like a text just saying like I'm all good, but I think I think I understand it pretty well.
Yeah, no problem. I'll post that to the announcements after class.
All right, perfect. Yeah, I just want to let you know because
yeah, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Have a good time with your family.
Yeah, thank you.
Dudes.
I got one question for you, Steve.
Yeah, Jacob.
So I was trying to do the comments for our speech reflection, and I noticed that I couldn't comment on other students' posts.
Oh.
Yes.
That's probably a setting I need to fix. That's been happening. I don't know what's up with.
It must be like a small setting that just gets looked
It is. It's a box,
Yeah.
but I don't understand why it would. I don't understand why that box would get checked from one quarter to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. Why would that change?
What's happening there? But no, I'll fix that. Thank you for telling me. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you for everything, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Have
I
a
hope
good-
you feel better soon, and
Thank
have a good
you.
night.
Yeah, you too.
All righty. Bye.
Well, you.
In 1905, the mayor of Cambridge, England, received a telegram stating that Prince Mukasa Ali, brother of the Sultan of Zanzibar, would be visiting that very afternoon. Despite the short notice, the mayor determined to provide the distinguished guest with all the honors the city could offer. When the guests arrived, the party in their bright robes and turbans was shown around the university and seemed greatly impressed. The mayor told the newspaper The Daily Mail that he regretted that they were unable to receive the visitors more fittingly due to the short notice. What he didn't know is that he was being pranked by a group of university students after they read in the newspaper that the real Sultan of Zanzibar was visiting London. They rented costumes, used makeup to darken their faces, and fired off the telegram to the mayor. Prank almost went awry, as none of the pranksters actually spoke Swahili. They conversed mostly in gibberish and sign language. But to their surprise, a former missionary heard that they were on campus and came and asked to chat with the prince in his own language. They were saved by the quick thinking of the prankster who was playing their interpreter, who explained to the lady that no woman could speak to the prince, who was not a member of his harem. On March 2nd, tonight.
Dave,
Hey.
I wanted some more information on the softball league because that's how my husband and I met was playing softball, and I am not to toot my own horn or anything, but I went to a tournament in Lewiston a couple years, like last year, and I hit 4 home runs. So
What?
yeah, so I'm one of
That's
those
really
people
good.
that would probably be fought over, and I would love to be fought over.
I can't do anything even slightly like that. Uh Let me get you the website.
And I'm also one of those people that like every other thing, like it takes so much for me to act right in this class because I know that we have kids that are like 17 and stuff, but I'm like full of the jokes, and I'm also queer, so I would love to be around other queer people. And my husband and I are actually exploring the whole poly thing, so it'd be a nice chance to maybe meet other girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
That's the website that I just sent you. By the way, you're doing great as far as that. You can share much more if you ever feel like it. But you mentioned tonight when you made the comment about like, sorry, I talk too much. You are not talking too much. You are doing you are adding a ton to the class. Thank you so much for adding so much to the class.
Okay, good.
But that's the
I just feel
website.
bad because I'm always talking, and I'm just like I know people.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it makes other people more comfortable, but I have like this deep rooted like as growing up, it's trauma really because I was always too much, or I talked too much, or I was too loud. So I always like I'm embracing it, but I never know. I need encouragement sometimes, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing wonderful. You are adding a ton to the class, like a ton. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's
I
the
love
whole
this
thing.
so much.
Yeah, it's I could answer questions or whatever. It basically there are 2 times where there's stuff going on. There's the fall ball, which just ended, and that is like a really casual time. Otherwise,
Okay.
spring basically is when they'll start up again, and it'll go during the spring into the beginning of summer.
Okay. I've heard like, are there other ones that do like through the winter, or is it only spring? Because in Spokane, we don't have turf fields or anything. So if our fields get muddy, they're done. So we don't do winter, but it's basically fall, spring, and summer. But somebody told me that the west side is like all year round. This isn't one of those all year round ones? I'm sure there's more leagues, but
This is the one I'm aware of.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know actually. This is the only one
You
I know.
don't have to be queer, you just have to be queer accepting.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think most of the people in it are some kind of queer, but there's always somebody on, it seems like, on the team where you're like, who are you? It's like, I'm just some straight guy. You're like, okay, cool. If it's a straight person, they must be awfully okay with everything.
Right.
Very queer. And then lesbians are super welcome. Everybody's welcome.
My husband sent me a meme the other day where it was basically it was a guy with a shield, and then there was like a little kid or whatever, and it said or no, it was something with a dragon, and it said something about how husbands of bisexual women, or the men of bisexual women, single-handedly hold up the entire queer I was like I can only imagine what that's like because I love all women and one man. So it's
That
like
is so cool. Yeah.
that's one
Oh,
of those things where he jokes about it, but he loves how like he's not one of those straight guys who are like, oh, my wife's queer, maybe he'll have a threesome. He's like, no, like literally go do all, like, because I'm very sorry TMI, but he won't let me peg him, so it's like I want to use it on somebody, and he's just like, you know what, go do what you have to do. Like now that we're married, like I know you're not going anywhere.
with himself though. He sounds so confident. You sounds like you have him. He sounds like you have a really confident man.
Yeah, he's it took a little bit to get here. He grew up like Italian Catholic, and he had there was 5 kids in the family, so they were very like, his parents just kind of threw him to the wayside and did everything for everybody and did everything for him because it was easier. So he has a really hard time speaking up for himself. So being with somebody like me who knows, I know myself and I know other people really, really well, it's helped him to kind of come out of his shell. And it's also helped him to see that I'm not here to judge him because I'm a weirdo myself. And like I literally have no room to judge. I'm probably one of the most, like, you could tell me you killed a man and I'd be like, well, I'm sure there was a reason, like I just we have a very beautiful relationship, and I'm actually really excited to go to the west side because I'm excited to see how he meets new people with different mind. Like I feel like it's so much more diverse over here. And so he's going to be able to see all these sorts of different people. And so that's why I'm also really excited with this softball league, is because for one, I'll know you, and for two, I'll know like he'll have, I don't know, I think it'll be more comfortable for him because he loves softball and he's been worried about finding a sport. But if we're doing, because I'd probably be more willing to play in a league like this, because in Spokane, everybody's sleeping with each other and their wives, and like it's weird. It's like scummy type stuff though. It's not even like ethical non-monogamy. It's just straight up cheating on everybody. And I don't know. I'm really excited about this. So when you brought it up, I like almost crapped my pants. I was so stoked.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Probably not quite that excited, but pretty excited. But
that's cool.
Yes, thank you for the info. I am going to go to my mother-in-law's and get some meatloaf.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat some chicken myself. I think that noise
Sounds
was
good.
showing up. I know, it was just it showing up, I think. So
Nice. You guys got a new roommate? Is it the economy or is it boredom?
No, it's he needed to escape Kentucky.
You know what? I love that for him. I think he chose a good house then. You guys are good friends.
Thank you.
All right. See you Thursday.
Yeah, see you Thursday. And if you have any more questions come up about the league, let me know.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.